No Harry Potter movie is
And
good.
you're like, give me the Snyder Cut.
Oh, sorry. So walk in front of you here. I'm gonna put my popcorn down. Oh, sorry. Gotta put this here.
Universal needs to sue Sony.
Hey, I'm an idiot. I was fired from Fox. Let me go.
I'd like actually to see Venom just crush Spider-Man.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are joined by, at this point, let's say a friend of the show, because you've been on twice now. I think that classifies.
Family friend.
April Mullen, the director of the very upcoming movie, Simulant. How have you been? How has this kind of time while you're waiting for this movie to come out kind of been for you?
It's been great. I mean, a lot has happened since last we spoke. I think we were in the middle of VFX and post and composers and creating the music and the soundscape of the film. And all of that took a while because we had to sort of engage a bunch of VFX artists from all around the world because everybody was so busy catching up after the pandemic, probably mostly on Avatar. So we knocked on Sam Worthington's door and asked him to ask James Cameron to send a few people our way. Just kidding. But it was great. You know, we got to work with lots of indie VFX artists who did an incredible job finishing all the layers of the film that created our world that is Simulant. So that is what we were doing in the meantime. I also shot a little pilot in Canada, which was a lot of fun, called Spencer Sisters. It's completely the opposite realm of what we're talking about today, but it was with Leah Thompson and Stacey Farber, and we got to get down and dirty with a mom and daughter duo on the hunt for some criminals. So it was really fun, really, really fun.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. You did do. I completely forgot you'd done an episode of that, and so that's and that's just another. You've been keeping very busy. I got to say that. Now
You have to.
the one thing I got to ask you, because I know this is something which is on everyone's mind, and it was on my mind when the first trailer came out, which is, what the hell is this title? This movie was supposed to be Hello Stranger, and now it's Simulant. So what's the story with that?
I can't explain it except for the US distributors fell in love with this Simulant. I mean, we did talk about simulants in the film lots, but the title was always Hello Stranger and had been for 8 years. So I'll still slip sometimes and call it Hello Stranger. But they just thought it had sort of a replica vibe and really said a lot about the title. So they decided to name it Simulant, which sometimes it's a tongue twister. I still can't say, but I like it. I'm embracing it. I am moving forward with the change.
So it wasn't a creative change necessarily. It was a marketing change.
I guess so, if I'm allowed to say that.
It's okay. No one will know. Okay, so because I think I was reading some of the comments on like the trailer, and I think a lot of people were like, wasn't this supposed to be called something else, and now it's this? And so I wasn't sure if there was like a change in the way, like when you're kind of going through the editing and you said, wait, this makes more sense, the title, or if it was something more down the line, and so it looks like it was more down the line. So
The people above us that are putting the film out, and so the US distributors pitched it to the international distributors and Canadian distributors, and everybody was on board and loved the new title.
well, I guess if they loved it, then that's what it's going to be.
They won.
So I was kind of watching the last time you were on, and we were talking about. I mean, you just finished filming it, so we are kind of talking about it very generally, and then I was thinking about it now, and it's like, when we first talked about it, this seemed like such a foreign concept. Now it doesn't. Like, in the course of literally 1 year, this has literally become something where I'm like, I could see this happening. And how does that feel for you, someone who made this movie, and now you're like, we're living basically that?
It's true. I mean, think of this. I read the script 6 years ago when I first read it, and I was like, I love this. It felt so far-fetched and so far removed from every reality, we kind of knew, except for sci-fi and movies. And then, while we were filming, AI, ChatGPT, all that didn't exist still. Or at least if it was happening, it wasn't part of like
It wasn't
the norm
public.
talking about. No. And now, just a few months ago, it's sort of, AI is creating art, is creating taglines, synopsises, scripts, writing essays. and probably getting A pluses all over the world right now. And it's very uncomfortable. And it's kind of, I think Simulant really is going to be a stamp on the generation right before all of this happens. Like the film really poses the question, where will you stand in the world between kind of AI and sticking to kind of the humanity side of things? And it really allows you to think. It's a think film, like a think piece film. So I it was ahead of time, and now it's actually just currently on the pulse of what's happening in the world. And it says a lot about what our future could look like in the next 5 years if we did kind of replicate, loved ones, lost ones. You can sort of now compose memories, emails, and AI can pull from emails, social platforms, and create the personality and have them respond in their response to like emails and everything. So I have no idea what will happen, but I feel like Simulant is much closer to a reality than it ever has been, for sure.
I mean, outside of like the physical like putting like the physical robot body, I think in terms of technology, again, I'm no expert on any of this, so I'm just kind of, talking based on what I've heard or read, right? But it's like, it seems like we're basically there apart from like the actual physical robot body type thing in terms of that understanding.
I believe you're right. I mean, I haven't dug deep enough into the realms of all of what's happening in the black hole, but it's very close. I even got to see templates of the Tesla bot here in LA, and they look phenomenal. And I can't wait for one of them to be running around, at a restaurant serving us and see what that's like.
So, some of the people watching this, I'm sure, have not heard of your movie, or maybe they've seen the trailer. So, kind of give a little elevator pitch to someone as to what this movie is about and why you want them to watch it.
Okay, the film opens with Faye, our main character, who is going through grief. She lost her husband, but before he passed away, they decided to create simulants, which are exact replicas, sort of like human androids, and they look and feel just like people, and they're indistinguishable from a human being. And she brings to life her deceased husband in simulant form, Evan, who is played by Robbie Amell, and things don't exactly add up the way she hoped, and things are a bit off, and he remembers his death, which he's not supposed to. There's a few hiccups in the programming, and then in comes Simu, who plays an amazing role of Casey, and he is basically at the forefront of setting simulants free and giving them free autonomy, and Kessler, who is Sam Worthington, is there to stop that and protect all of humanity, in a nutshell.
That sounds amazing, and I think it's kind of hard because especially like IMDb, summary on IMDb is not great, so I think it's good to hear it from you and kind of get that full picture, because it sounds even better than any of the summaries I've read of it. So
yeah, it's a lo-fi thriller, like the world of the VFX and all the sci-fi. It's very lo-fi. It's meant to feel seamless, integrated, and not overly stated. It should feel like today's world with just a few augments, the holograms, the octahedron that can open into people's chests. Very, very simple, small things that hopefully don't take away from the characters, because at the end of the day, our four characters all have a lot to say and have a big mission. Mostly, I think they're all fighting for love in their own way. And I always wanted that to be at the forefront of what people were engaging in and sort of invested in, and not being distracted by incredible VFX all around them. But so hopefully that doesn't distract too much.
So it's interesting you brought up this idea of science fiction, right? Because obviously this movie at least is technically considered science fiction. And, I was thinking about this and I was like, at what point is AI just not science? Like, what point do we kind of say maybe some of these movies aren't actually science fiction? Because, I think science fiction at least implies this kind of this non-real thing, right? It's like something that could happen but hasn't happened, right? And so what do you see? There's a point where we could end up saying some of these things we traditionally thought were science fiction aren't that anymore?
Yes. I don't know when. Definitely Simulant is still science fiction because the simulants, the whole thing is they have these capsules that get delivered to your home and you plug them in and you at night go and you put this sort of contraption onto your eyes and brain, then they connect to you and you download the memories and the moments of the day every day. So you're sort of like, it's like dropping to the iCloud into your simulant so if something happens, it's kind of like picks up right where you left off. That's not happening yet. So that's still sci-fi. At least I don't think it's happening yet.
Nothing that we know of, at least, yeah. But do you think there is a point?
I mean, not yet.
But do you think there is a point where we could get to seeing some of these movies kind of no longer be sci-fi?
I do. I do believe that's coming soon. I hope it's Back to the Future first because we all want to fly the DeLorean.
See, I can't disagree with that because it's just completely true.
Considered sci-fi. What would that genre be? The best.
Factual. Just factual. Or just science. Just get rid of the fiction. It's just called science movies. So we're going to do something a little bit different now, okay? Your movie obviously is about, I guess, robots in the very basic sense. So I'm gonna ask you.
Ooh la la.
What robot would you want to spend the day of the four on the screen if people are listening to this? The robots are R2-D2 and 3CPO, RoboCop, Alex Murphy, Baymax, and Wally. So if you could hang out with one of them for a day, who would it be and why?
It's way too hard. I mean, so fun-loving and probably we get into a lot of trouble, and in a fun way we would probably bring down some pretty big things. I would want to save the rainforest with Wally. And then who would not want to hang out with R2-D2 and CP3O? Please, they're icons. It's like saying, do you want to hang out with, I don't even know, someone brilliant. I definitely want to speak to them about what it was like being on set and being directed. And I would love to hang out with pretty much all of them. RoboCop even. Bring down some bad peeps. That would be fun. Yeah, it's tough.
But if you have to choose one, which one would it be?
R2-D2 and 3CPO. Only because I'm such a big fan.
See, I would probably choose RoboCop, but just because that feels like a very different, like. Also, it's funny because 3 of these are Disney robots, so I don't. That just struck me as like, but yeah, I think I would want some, maybe not someone as, fun as Baymax or Wally would be, but I don't know. I feel like RoboCop would be so cool to just be spending time with. I don't know.
Pretty badass. I feel like if I spent the day with RoboCop, we'd have to get some helicopters and some convertible cars going.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And actually, people in the comments, just who would you want to spend the day with? Which one of these and why is? I feel like a lot of people go Baymax. I don't know why, but I feel like Baymax is just that kind of robot.
Coolest.
Exactly. So, and I think we've kind of talked about this, especially with the kind of message of love. But what element of the movie spoke to you, and what do you want audiences to kind of take away from the movie?
When I first read the script, I think I might have said this in my first time seeing you and being with you, is that it really made me feel angry, because I'm always in the defense of humanity and being in the moment and human beings and creativity and creating art and the unpredictability of life. And I love unique and eccentric personalities. Human beings. Really, I feel like I'm this protective advocate of our kind. So when there's a threat of AI sort of taking over relationships, or that they're available to sort of create relationships with, I've always feared that they would sort of replace real love affairs, real love romances, real friendships with people that we meet on a daily basis. And I want us to stay connected as human beings, when you go to the grocery store or when you're walking on the street. I love the eye contact, the small little pieces that make us interact on a daily basis. And I always thought, oh no, if AI sort of takes over, everyone will be more and more insulated in their homes and sort of creating relationships with screens that are like programmed to just be everything they hope, they want to hear and everything they want to talk about, which isn't a bad thing for those who might be lonely or feel maybe too much anxiety to go in the outside world. Like sometimes I think it could be healing, but on the bigger front of things, I always really was this like protector of the human force. So when I read the script, I was like, oh, this is terrifying. People are able to create simulants of their loved ones and bring them back to life. And like, what does that mean? Like, will we go that far? Grief does really change things when you're in a moment of grief. You want and crave that person so much that what extent will you go to, and will that person be honored if they're brought back to life, but it's not really them? Like all of those questions really tore me up at night. And I kept thinking about the script, and I kept thinking about the themes in the script, and, who am I to say that the love between AI and human isn't real? At the end of the day, if it's real for both sides, I kind of feel like, oh, I have to take a step back and let that be. And I really ping-ponged each time I read the script, like who I was rooting for. Sometimes I would be rooting for Faye. Sometimes I'd be rooting for Evan because he, there was so much compassion there. And then I'd be rooting for Simu's character and then Sam's. And I'm sort of like really torn up. I thought, I have to make this film because it's creating this ping pong effect and tug of war of what the future might look like. And if we're at this sort of precipice of where we're going to go, left or right, are we going to go into a more of an AI landscape, or are we going to all run away and go into the forest and stay organic? I just thought it would be a really interesting film for me as a director to try and stay as neutral as possible, which was a challenge, because like I said, I normally
because you're biased on one side, which is the side of human beings.
Yeah, exactly. But then I thought it's a really good, strong challenge for me as an artist or director to just sort of allow the film to speak for itself, allow the characters to have their own perspectives and fight for their own missions, and not sway the audience in any way, shape, or form. Just present them with a film and options, and let them think about it. So that's what I really loved.
And so I was going through the comments on, the trailers and posts about this movie. And I was looking at what people were kind of talking about in relation to what you could compare it to. Because obviously, when a movie comes out, everyone wants to try to make comparisons to like, oh, it's like this or it's like that, right? So
yes, original, what it actually is.
Well, everything is somewhat related to everything else, or at least people want to make that connection. Obviously, people making these connections haven't actually seen the movie; they're basing it off a 2-minute trailer. So, but there are two interesting comparisons, which I think the more you talk about these, this movie, the more I think are actually legitimate comparisons, especially one of these, and those movies are Dark City and I, Robot, obviously both directed by the same person. Do you kind of see that in your movie, those two kind of comparisons?
I think the themes are present for sure. For sure. The same sort of themes are present in both of them. I, Robot, I remember seeing it. And yeah, for sure. I'll just say yes. There are elements, themes, definitely that are the same.
I think
our VFX probably 1/100th of theirs, but
iRobot also came out in 2004, so, you could do a lot more with the money that they used because of how much technology has changed. And I think iRobot, at least from what you've been describing, seems so much more of, not necessarily a similar, a comparison, but, very similar themes, I guess, at the core about technology and humanity and kind of that relationship.
I would agree. Definitely. It definitely has all of the same themes, and but just done in a totally different way, and probably on a much smaller level. Like our film really involves two people, and it's a husband and wife, and it really looks deeply into their relationship, and it doesn't go much broader than that.
And
Yeah.
were there any other movies you kind of took inspiration from, or you watched kind of as, to just kind of get an idea of how to make this movie kind of work and how to put it together in a way in which it would work?
Not particularly a film. I sort of just digest things throughout my life, and then it sort of goes into my brain. So I wouldn't say I pulled from anything specifically. I was really trying to be honest, I was trying to stray away from, in terms of VFX and the look of our service androids and our simulates, I was really trying to stray away from anything that had been seen before on screen, which actually made things more challenging. Our service androids, which you can see by the trailer, they're actually full prosthetic. And there's just a little VFX like tattoo enhancement of Nexera, which is like the Apple of our world. But the prosthetic, our actors were in the chair for 8 hours, and they had like a hard shell added to their body. So they would be, basically you would remove all of like our little human kind of tweaks and flaws and just have it sort of be like a unique flesh that they would have. And then we sort of did an indent of like metal work along the cheekbone, but it's very slight. And then of course the hard hair, which was, just a unique addition, rather than having like the scalp and see sort of like the inner workings of the machine. We really tried to do something iconic, different for the service androids, and I think what we came up with really stands out. I don't think there's never been anything that looks to me like our service androids, and the Japanese service android 2 is really, really unique, with her hair sort of like this big, cool bubble, and I absolutely love the way they turned out, and they're real people playing those roles, obviously with prosthetic augment, and then just the little sort of VFX augments to their eyes and to the chest, and then with the sort of revealing the hard drive and the inner workings of our simulates, there was so much creative talk of sort of implementing, again, practical and then VFX, and sort of having this design where it would open up and sort of reveal the octahedron, which is like this little tiny octahedron, and inside of that has all of the memories and all of everything that requires to be, to activate the simulate. And when you put it on its case holder, it sort of goes into this like abyss looking crystal formation, which I was hoping would look like sort of nebulas and sort of like space and this endless kind of alive vibe, which was very organic, opposite sort of the regular sort of like thick wires and sparks and all of that. So I tried to really stray to something new and give the audience something really different. And you could sort of see the mechanics of how it opens and closes in the film. So I was I feel like we were designing that. I started designing, on pen and paper. Well, the pandemic was happening because the film got paused from the pandemic. So I had a lot of time to develop what the octahedron would look like and what that would all look like. So it was being developed for a very, very long time.
And kind of to move beyond that a little bit, because obviously this movie, is about, I think a few months to a year ago when we first spoke. And I think at that point you had just finished filming the movie. And
okay.
So what was the process like? Because obviously I don't think at that point you had you sold the rights or anything. I think you were still kind of in that process. So what was that process like of getting it to distributors and being able to do all that stuff?
Vertical has it in the US, and Mongrel has it in Canada, and Myriad has it internationally. Myriad pre-bought the film, so they actually picked it up at script level and were involved in the casting process and sort of green lighting some actors and helped us along the way as we were casting and giving some notes, and they came to visit on set. So they were part of the film from the beginning. And so was Mongrel. Mongrel loved the deck and the pitch deck and the script and the visual documents that we put together and the teaser that we put together. Nowadays to make an independent film, you really have to jump through like not just one hoop, like 3,000 to make sure you get the financing that you need or at least the financing to make it. It's a world of remakes and sequels, which is fun, and they're usually huge, but in independent cinema right now is really a whole other, since the pandemic theaters have become even more difficult to get into when it comes to an independent film. So we're really excited to be playing in 40 screens across Canada starting April 7th. Really pumped up because it really is a challenge to get an independent film made, and then also seen on the big screen is another big uphill sort of. The landscape is sort of direct to TV, direct to VOD, direct to Netflix, direct to Amazon. Any VOD platforms is sort of where we are right now, and we're really excited that some people will be able to see it on the big screen. But the whole process is a long one. It just is.
So I got two questions then that come from that. Is first one is, were there points, especially over the last year, where you knew you had this movie done, but then there were points where like you weren't even sure it was going to actually come out, and where did you have those kind of feelings of, oh no, what if I did this all for essentially nothing? And was there ever a point where you thought about just putting it on Netflix or an Amazon, or was the intent always we want it on theater screens?
You always hope your film gets seen in the theater because you see the glimmer in the eyes, you see the breathing in the chest, you actually get to see these details in the set design and the land and the worldscape, and you see so much more and you feel so much more when you're at the cinema. At least I really truly believe that when you see it with peers and people are laughing and scared and crying all together, there's like a much larger impact, I think, to the audience member, rather than playing it on your phone when you stop and start and you sort of see it small and you can't really even see people's true reactions on close-ups. You're kind of like, your face is in a screen, and then you're like pressing pause and you're running out the door to grab your Uber Eats. It's a good one. But I think every filmmaker really hopes to have their films seen on the big screen, just because you put 5 years of your life, 4 years of your life into something, and you want to make the greatest impact because you're making movies for people. So you really want to affect the people. So that's how you can sort of get to their heartstrings the quickest. And so I think everybody dreams of their film being at the cinema. And with the whole thing of like, did we ever think, oh no, is this ever going to get made? Every single second. Like prep, filming, post, when the VFX artists weren't available, we weren't making any of our deadlines because our VFX were like much more complicated than we thought. And, getting these augments done and getting it delivered on time, there's like the tightest windows to get things delivered. And we always thought, oh, are we ever going to make it? Are we ever going to make it to the finish line? You think that every second. We were in the middle of Omicron while we were shooting. And so we're like, is anyone going to catch COVID? Everybody is around us, but we aren't somehow knock on Sam Withington's here for 12 days. If he catches it, we're done. The film's over. Like there's always something happening while you're making a film. But I kind of find that exciting because you're like riding the edge, and the film itself is alive. It has a heartbeat of its own. So you're kind of like have to ride that tidal wave with grace and let it be its own beast, because it's alive too, just like everything else. There'll be mistakes, there'll be hiccups, there'll be hopefully happy accidents too that happen on set or post, and things that come out of things that you would never even dream of, and then you're kind of happy with the end result. But yes, every single day you're like, are we gonna make it? Is this film gonna make it to the end? And I'm still like, are we gonna get our posters in time? Like, where are our posters?
So is there a sigh of relief now, or do you think that'll come kind of when the movie's out officially and people are watching it, and like, is that sigh of relief happened, or is it going to happen?
I think it's happened. It's going to happen probably after the few premieres, but it's happened because at least we delivered on time. For me, the biggest thing is being able to deliver the film on time. I mean, then you really hope that the distributors, and everybody fights for it to be on the screen and it finds an audience. And you always hope the reviews are somewhat, not comparing your film to Arrival and Blade Runner, and you're like, come on. Those are amazing. Just leave us alone in our own category. There's a whole bunch of other things that happen when the film gets released to the world, and people get to see it, and you just hope that it finds the right audience and it speaks to people.
And are you one of those people who are gonna kind of just be completely like obsessed with reviews as they come out and like reactions online, and are just gonna be stalking social media and trying to see what people think, or no?
I can't be, because I'll tell you something. my very first feature film, Rock, Paper, Scissors, The Way of the Tosser, which was like 17 years ago or something, or 18 years, we read every review because we were like, the film was made with very little and 7 people on crew. We were directing, writing, and producing and starring in. We poured 3 years into it, went across the that really worked hard. And then the reviews come out and they were just comparing us to massive films. And I don't know, like, reviewers are harsh. I don't know, like, they're harsh on the internet now. Before it was all in the newspapers and the trades, and you're like, wow, okay, this is like something I really can't take personally. Everybody has their own opinion on what art is and what is funny, what isn't funny, and everybody is so uniquely themselves that it's kind of odd that one person's review can sway 10,000 to go to the movie or not. At the time, it was like in hard copy, like Now Magazine,
Right.
was like the thing that everybody listened to. And if it was 5 ends, you would go, and if it was 4 ends, you would go, but if it was 0, you wouldn't. And I just always thought it was kind of, it's like some people love Picasso, other people don't. I don't know. I love Salvador Dali. Other people might think scribbles. It's just like art really doesn't have a definition. It's not like math where it's 2 + 2 will always equal 4. It's kind of all subjective. Everybody will have their own likes and dislikes, and I can't look at reviews or I'll never make another film. They're too damaging. Like, I would never step outside of my door. They're so damaging because those people aren't on the ground floor making the films. Like, if they ever knew what it was like to really, really make a film from beginning, middle to end, if they didn't like it, they'd just be like, not for me.
Instead of like completely trashing the people who worked on it, yeah.
I just like so much love and for filmmakers out there who are actually making original content in a landscape that's pretty much generated by, let's face it, kind of AI, when there's like, massive conglomerates making decisions on, whatever sequel to whatever predisposed film that we've already all seen. You don't really have much hope anyway. So if you're making original content, I'm like, you're amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
To be able to be brave enough to go out there and have a voice that's original, and it's going to get destroyed and you're going to get beaten down, but you just can't look at the reviews. You got to get up. I learn, like I glance at them so I can learn. It's important to learn what you did wrong, and also sit with the audience and watch it with them, because then you can also see, where things worked and where they didn't. You can just feel it. You're like, oh shit, no one liked that part.
Well, that's what the premieres are for too, right? So you can kind of see what people are feeling when they watch it. When is the first premiere for it, by the way? Just out of curiosity.
On April 7th, we're doing a huge red carpet with Sam, Robbie, and Alicia and myself, and we're doing a Q&A with the filmmakers afterwards, and it's at the Cineplex on Richmond. And then we're doing a Niagara Falls screening, red carpet screening in my hometown at the Niagara Square. Really fun, red carpet again. And then we're doing a Hamilton screening on the Tuesday, the 11th. And then from there, it's playing in all Cineplexes for hopefully more than a week, but for sure a week, starting April 7th for a week. And then hopefully we keep going.
Ooh, so you'll be kind of traveling and doing all of the fun stuff, going, and I'm sure you'll pop into a few other screenings during your kind of travel beyond, or as the whole thing kind of premieres. Now, I don't want to keep you because I know you have to go, and I know you're very, very busy right now promoting this movie and doing all your other stuff. But I do want to say thank you so much for making the time to kind of come on and chat with me about your movie, and I think I can say pretty confidently everyone should definitely watch this movie because it's literally, it sounds amazing, and I'm so excited to watch it myself. And do you have anything else you want to say to everyone before you head off?
Spread the word to see Simulant in theaters. It does make a big difference on Canadian films, whether we keep on making them. And so for the future generation, that filmmakers that are out there that are coming up through their ranks, I love you. Keep working hard. Go see movies in theaters because that's your future too. So keep the Canadian film industry alive.
And keep it growing too. Not only alive, but thriving.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for coming. Thank you everyone for watching. Don't forget you can obviously follow April Mullen on social media. It's underneath her picture. And You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. I forgot about that part. And you can follow me on social media, and all the links and everything are in the description. And go watch Simulant in theaters April 7th? 7th, okay. Thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.
Comic Boy Show.